my challenge now is that based on what's going on in our country, I know that a lot of people not here, but in the United States, well, it actually goes further than that. It goes around the world. But the tensions that we're under as a society and the moral and ethical decisions we're being faced with, I can't help but get concerned about the future. So how can I apply my personal living in the now
Yeah.
with my, even though I won't be here for future generations, my descendants will be, and I'm concerned.
Okay. So, Richard, thank you for that incredibly important and timely question. Very, yeah, very timely. And the other thing I'm aware of is that this question has been relevant in all times. So there are two things that I'm noticing about this question. One is we're asking how can my own personal practice of bringing the attention to the present moment, staying here and now, how can that apply in the circumstances in which there's so much threat to our world based on what we see as kind of inevitable. The first piece that I want to point to, and actually the second piece that arose for me might just get woven in here, is the importance of questioning our relationship to time. We are conditioned to see the present moment as this fine little point on a line of time. So the past is here, the future is here, and the present moment is this little point on that line. When we're viewing it that way, we rarely pause to question how we're seeing time, but we're conditioned to view time in a linear fashion. That is, time and space we view in a particular way through the lens of the conditioned mind. So, from the perspective of the conditioned mind, we, meaning I, Caverly, get better through practice at keeping the attention on this little point that I call now. Oh, I'm thinking about the future. Come back to now. Oh, worried about the past. Come back to now. Noodling something I said yesterday, past. Come back now. Stressing about something that will be next week. Come back to now. That's a really valuable mindfulness practice. What I would encourage is next for you to have inquiry around is the turning the attention rather than to the habit, and I shouldn't say habit implies sort of conditioned habit, and often the way that I use it. So the practice, rather than turning the attention to the practice of bringing the attention back to that point on the line again and again and again, let the attention rest in the awareness that's timeless. Let the attention settle in the consciousness that is timeless. Now, it's important to acknowledge that this isn't to say, oh, time's not real. It's to say that time's real on one plane of experience. In truth, in the deepest realm of experience, there is no time. But of course, in the same in the same way that matter appears real from a particular view, we see the illusory nature of matter when we allow the attention to rest in pure consciousness. The same is true of time and space. So what might be an interesting question is, how do I then relate to that plane of reality in which there's past and future? You know, I am doing a retreat in July, not doing a retreat in this moment. How do I relate to that experience, knowing that all there actually is now? That retreat, let's say I'm planning for that retreat, that's happening now. The experience of being on the call with colleagues about the schedule we'll have for that retreat, that's happening now. Again, to say there's only now doesn't imply that we can't, quote unquote, plan for the future or look out for our children. Yes, it's incredibly important to be able to say, I want to leave this planet in a state that my descendants, as you said, will be able to thrive. And we're not making choices as a society that ensure that collectively. Imagine if collectively we all shared that intention, we'd be making different choices. So Richard, thank you so much for coming on and for sparking this conversation about now as more than just a little spot in a line of time. You'll also note that when we view time that way, we're keeping some sense of the separate self in place, because then we can beat ourselves up for, oh, I haven't been very in the moment today. I've been thinking about this. I've been thinking about that. Rather than recognizing that activity of the conditioned mind was actually all arising in now. Where else could it exist? So when we are perceiving time in that way, it's not that it's not real, it's that we're missing the reality of that particular quote unquote reality. So we're missing the timelessness in time when we engage in time as if it's truth. We're missing the timelessness in time. So we can engage in our collective view of time while knowing that time isn't quote unquote real. Again, you hear me wanting to acknowledge there, just in the same way that if we say your sense of self is just an illusion, that doesn't mean it's not real. It feels very real when we're identified with it, but we miss the reality of that illusion.